So I wanted to get real quick into how to start your motion design project for like a news intro in Photoshop. So let's assume I've already done a storyboard. I've thought through some of the designs I want to use. I've got a mood board of some things that are examples from other intros that I may want to use. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use those ideas and try to start the work in here in Photoshop. And I'll use this to import into Premiere. So I'm going to go New, and all my graphics are going to appear in one document here. So lots of layers. So I'm going to use the 1920 by 1080, which you find in film and video. And it's over here, 1920 by 1080, HD TV, 1080p. And I'm going to click Create. So now I'm going to have this setup. And you may wind up with a white background or a transparent background. It may vary, but assume that you'll be just building on top of this. So I'm going to add a layer here. I never want to draw on that background layer because it's harder to get rid of. So what I want to use is I want to sort of design sort of a morning sky background with some designs and graphics on it. So I'm going to take the, let's see, I'm going to set my colors here. And yours may not look like this, but this is an example of how we set this up um, using layers to build up the different pieces of our motion graphics design project. So I'm trying to keep this relatively unsaturated because I want other things to appear in front of it that'll be of more importance. So I could take this color here and use that as a comparison for where to go from there. So I've got this, and I'm going to use the gradient tool. Now the gradient tool allows me to create different gradients and different shapes. So for example, this diamond shape one does this. I don't really like that very much. Here's this two-band setup, and each one sort of does different things, and it's really kind of hard to see the differences. But if, for example, if I use uh, more of an intense difference in the colors, you'll see sort of the changes. So there's this one. This is a radial gradient. Okay, this is linear. It's this way. Radial. This one's sort of a diamond shape. Not really too excited about that one. This is a sort of a linear gradient with one band in the middle. And then this one is, what is this one? This is a diamond. Interesting. So I'm going to use a really, you don't want it to be too intense, or you don't want to make big differences between, this is just a background piece. So I'm going to lay some stuff on top of this when I'm done. So I'm just going to use this basic, I don't know, the bigger I make this radial, the more it's going to have some showing through there. So I'm going to try to reduce some contrast in here, but not a whole bunch. So something like this will kind of work. So if I work with this or choose the different angles and try things out until I like what I see, and I'm just sort of thinking about the morning sky. All right, something like this. I kind of like that a lot. If we go from the top though, so I get this. Okay, something like that makes me happy, and just kind of mess around until I like it. And I'm going to add some graphics and stripes to this. I'm going to use another layer. Click on new layer down here, and if I zoom out by using Control minus, I'm going to be able to make a selection here. So my selection is going to be an area I'm going to dump some color into. So once I've got that, I'm going to hold down Alt, and I'm going to sort of change the shape of this. And I can use the space bar to move that around as I want to. So I want sort of a shape like this. And it looks like part of the Amazon symbol or part of a Nike symbol, but in the end, only the part on the screen is what I'm working with. So I'm going to make my colors white or black or whatever I want to work with. I'm going to go with kind of a gray here. And if I fill it up with the paint, you can put a gradient in there if you want to. There's a lot of ways to work this out. Gosh, I think I'm going to try a gradient actually. So I'm going to switch this to like this. And if I get that gradient tool again, use this one, linear. And I'm trying to get the feel that we're creating some sense of depth in here. So that's kind of cool. I'm going to switch these up and put the white in the middle, I think, or the dark in the middle, I guess is what that is. So that's going to sort of create a sense of depth and curvature. And I like that. It's not really intense. It's not really too dramatic. And let me zoom back up on my picture again by double clicking the hand tool. And I can apply some FX to this. So I'm going to try a drop shadow, which would give it some emphasis, but not too much. That's a lot of shadow. I'm going to drop the distance down a little bit. I want to just show a little bit of this, like that. The spread has to do with the size and how much it fades out. So those are things you can try and mess with. You can mess with the opacity on it to just make it more subtle. Okay, so this is just a background piece. It is not the whole picture. And I can do more of that. I can make all kinds of shapes on my page. I can take another gradient on this, and this is kind of fun to try. If you get that gradient tool again and you drop this shade on here, and I pull this down behind that layer, and then I take this layer and I can change this to multiply. And there's just messing around with different ideas, different designs, and it's really kind of supposed to be abstract because I'm going to put other things in front as like text. So let's get that going on. I'm going to add a couple of stripes on the front. I think what I'll do is I'm going to go ahead and make a layer that is red. So since we're the Baylors that send me to high school, I'm going to sort of make that stripe sort of like this. Again, I don't want it to be too dominant visually, so I'm making it reddish. Something like this. There we go. And I'm just going to fill up this whole layer with it. Something like this. Or maybe I'll use the gradient tool. Let's see. What if I make the other color black? Or take that color and just go darker with it. So now I'm going to have a gradient like this. And I can take and just drop that color in there. And now what I'm going to do, believe it or not, is Control T is the free transform tool. And I just want to make a stripe out of this. Something like that. And I can rotate this. And you can copy it by holding that Alt and dragging it. So Alt, drag, I got stripes. And I think I'm going to put the other stripe in front of this. Maybe, maybe not. I feel like this is not a very good design. But I'm trying to work this out, so I'm just trying to create a background. So if I take these two layers and make them one, merge layers, let's just got those two selected. And I'm just trying to change the opacity. And maybe put them back up. This is just a basic background design. And on top of this, I'm going to add some text. Now I'm going to put all the text, I'm going to reset my colors back to black and white with this little button here. And getting my text tool, I'm going to go ahead and start building my text objects. Now the first part of my text, according to the assignment, should say SPHS Baylor Media presents. And I'm going to make this, well, like this, presents. And I don't really like using serif fonts. This is a serif font. And serif fonts have these little embellishments on the ends. And I don't really care for those in most visual screen designs. It's just not really, it's usually good for print, but not so great for screens. So I'm going to go find a better font. And if I click on this, I can see lots of examples. And one that I probably overuse is Impact. And zoom back out. Let's adjust this and put it over here. And I probably need to make that more dominant. I need to make it have some contrast. So leave it like this, it's not going to be very readable. So I'm going to go ahead and take that, and I'm going to be stacking all this stuff up and importing it into Premiere. So let me give this shape. Let me accept the transform because I scaled it up. And I'm going to give it a drop shadow. That's going to help it show up a little bit better. I don't really like the way that looks at all. I want a good, solid, strong shadow on it. Messing with the distance. I'm looking over here to see what it looks like. Let's bring up the opacity. There we go, nice and solid. And there's a few things you can try on here. And the goal is to make it stand out and be the most important thing on the screen. It is competing with that white stripe in the background, so I may have to make some adjustments there. That's maybe something I need to work with to use as a frame or guide on the screen. So if I go to Bevel and Emboss, that's going to help me have a few things maybe. And I'm never sure if that's going to what I want to work with or not. I'm going to turn off the texture. Let's go back to here. So the depth is going to allow us to make a little bit more curvature on the letters. Helps it be more dominant. And I've tried things out with this satin setting, and I never really get too excited what that does. So if I bring up that, it just kind of gives it some sense of like that. And I'm never excited about that because it reduces the intensity of the white and de-emphasizes the design. So I'm not really too excited about satin on this piece. Let me use it somewhere else. I might come back to this stripe here and add, I'm just going to double click the effects and try satin there. And if I grab this setting and bring up the opacity, there we go. So I'm going to try some things out with this. Oh, that's nice. I'm just adjusting it, trying stuff out. All right, so what I'm going to do with that one is move it down and maybe rotate it and scale it a little bit. That's kind of a nice design. So what I'll do next, excuse me, is make the rest of my text. So I'm going to take this and duplicate it by dragging it onto the new layer button, hide the old one, get in there and change the text. So I could just build it from scratch using the text tool, but if I already have the design I want, why do it over again? So this is from Studio 204, 205, I guess. Studio 205. And I'm going to take the first part and reduce its size a little bit. And try to center it up a little bit. And that looks good. And now I'm going to do this again. Hide the old one. Double click in here to get into the text, or use the text tool, I guess. And we'll say, we can use this text up here to say the. And then down here, I'm going to say Baylor Bulletin. Get rid of that 205. Now I do want to make this a bit more dominant, so I'm going to take that Baylor Bulletin part and make it the biggest piece. So I'll take this. The number up here is like 115. The slider doesn't go down farther than that, so you have to type something in that's bigger. So I'm going to go with like 136. I don't know. And I feel like that still kind of lacks emphasis in some way. So I may work with my background design to make it a little bit less intense. So I could just change the opacity. Something like this. So now when I import these, it's going to make all these separate layers. So I'm going to delete anything I don't want to keep. Like that background white layer, I'm just going to get rid of that because it's not visible. This layer here, I'm not that excited about. Let's sort of grade things out a little bit. Trying things out. All right. So that's now my screen. Now the checkerboard you see through there just says this is transparent in the background, and it'll work out okay. So I'm now going to save this file, save as, and it wants to save it somewhere. I'm sure it does. I think it's trying to access my drive I'm putting it in. So got folders and folders and folders, lots of projects happening. So I'm going to go new folder. I'm going to call this, and I use 00 to put that at the front of my files because I've got lots of folders going on, and that puts it at the front or at the top. So this is my Baylor Bulletin intro. So now I've got a folder for it, and I'm just going to give this an A because I may make different versions of this to try out. So it's always good to try different things out, make different versions, different designs. And, you know, I sort of made this up pretty quick based on some random shapes and what have you, but that'll be good to work with. So the next thing I'm going to do is start building my content in Premiere.